years later, Universal made a serial called Around the World in 18 Days. Aerial stunts were increasingly popular with audiences, and increasingly hazardous for the men who tried them, like Gene Perkins.
And I was at Universal working with Perkins, and they had an episode in which, at Marsh Field, they wanted the Perkins to come across in an airplane and drop down and give the girl who was on the top of the train some documentary papers or so forth. So they had hired some fellow with an old Jenny plane with a rope ladder on it to go out and come around, and I was doubling the girl on top of the train. Well, of course, the fellow went around, circled around the train. Train was doing about, I guess, 45, 50 miles an hour up there by Marshfield. And instead of going behind the train and coming up the back end of the train, he came straight across the side. Now, Perkins, instead of standing in the bottom rung of the rope ladder, he hung.
Of course, Gene hadn't been a regular plane changer. He didn't know these things. So when they went to do it, he climbed down on the end of the ladder. And when you do that, you don't hang at the bottom rung, because if they don't get, you have to pull back up again. So what I would do is take 2 holts, in the foot, and I'd come down, and if he didn't get close enough, I'd come back up and rest my arms.
Well, he went down so low that he hit the windows of the train, and they dragged him across the top of the train. And when the plane got over on the other side in a bank to try to get up, his ribs were broken, and he couldn't climb back.
And Gene shook his head. He couldn't hang on, and he turned loose and fell in a plowed field. And his legs, bones went through his shoes into the ground, and it looked like he was standing knee-deep in a hole.
Then they wanted, later on, in that particular serial, for me to go out here to a semaphore on the railroad tracks and match up the fall. And I said, I don't remember reading anything about this in here. And they said, no, but they said, well, we want to pick it up where Perkins fell and went down. I said, he got killed in that. And they said, yes, we just go ahead and pick it up right there. I said, you don't pick it up with me, because I'm not going to jump off of there and double it and do it for you. And which I didn't do, because I didn't think it was cricket, so to speak.
MGM's epic, The Trail of '98, was a story of the Klondike Gold Rush, shot on location, no expense spared.
The Trail of '98, made by MGM, was probably one of the most disastrous pictures of that era, because we lost 4 men in one scene, in which we only recovered 2 of the bodies.
Stunts were usually planned inch by inch, but natural hazards, such as dangerous rapids, had to be left mainly to chance. They were far beyond the calculated risk.
There was 8 stuntmen that went up. The 8 of us were in 2 boats. And we were to go in the center of the river, and there was more water pouring through that gorge than pours through the Mississippi River at the highest tide.
So up we go. The cameras are all about 7 cameras stretched out down along the river, 2 of them on the tracks following down in those little Ford cars. And so the rocket went up, and all these boats shoved off. Well, I'm going to tell you, my boat, when I looked out there and I came down that first thing and went down into that first swell, there was a wall of water in front of me that was breaking back this way, higher than this room, which is a good 8, 9 feet higher, or maybe 10 feet, falling back. Well, of course, I shipped water immediately.
We were in the center of the stream, and the waves were like breakers in the surf. And we were going 35 miles an hour because the camera were on a Ford car with flange wheels, and they ran down a railroad track right down the gorge. And they had to go 35 miles an hour to keep even with us. And
I had oak sweep oars in there. I had 3 or 4 of them in there. I was on the sweep oar in the back. And to try to hold that boat straight, it got about 1.5 feet to 1 foot of water in it. And I lost control, and those sweep oars would just break. I was just bending them, trying to keep that thing straight. Well, of course, all boats were going over, and men was going out, down, and everything. It was just a catastrophe.
Safety ropes had been run across the river, fitted with loops. The second unit director was supposed to arrange for the loops to be reinforced with wire, which would hold them open.
But he didn't. There was no loop in the end. When it done, it just wound up, and it's like a hard twist rope with frozen stick. So the two men that grabbed the rope, when they slid on the rope, they slid down to the end of the rope to get the loop because their hands are cold, and they come down and there's nothing but a frozen, twisted rope, and they couldn't hold on from the ice water on their hands, and they had to turn loose. So they tried to start swimming to shore, and one man, he made it. But he made it part way. And the other man, we saw him going right on down the stream, and there's a big boulder size of a small bungalow that the water would hit and spew up over, and he went into that, and it hit and knocked him, and we knew he was dead.
And we found men here and found men there. Well, we searched for 10 days. We finally found 2 of the bodies.
But we never did find Red Thompson's body, because what happens in that ice water, when the body sinks, the gas doesn't form and they never rise. So we never did find Red's body. So that was the heartbreaking part of it, because I had gotten him the job. I had recommended him because he was a good type for a certain man. And I thought, well, now if I hadn't gotten him the job, he'd have still been here. But that's part of the hazard of the game.
The Learning Channel now returns to Hollywood.
Thursday on TLC, vision is a precious gift. When it falters and cataracts are to blame, the surgeon steps in.
The now returns to Hollywood.
Yesteryear, you know, we just different day, just a different day. I wish I could really explain. I wish I could really give what's in here out to you there, of the greatness of the old days. They made good pictures too, pretty good pictures. You know, with a box lunch and a $2 bill and a roll of film. That's what it was. But it was great.